return with part 2 at 9 p.m. Let's get back to the breaking news here on First Take. The International Olympic Committee has officially postponed the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games, pushing them back to the summer of 2021. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe said that he and IOC President Thomas Bach agreed on the postponement, saying, quote, "We have to think about the current outbreak of the coronavirus," end quote. The Tokyo Games were scheduled to be held from July 24th to August 9th. On that note, we bring in IOC committee member Dick Pound. Dick, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Dick, you got us?
Can you hear us, Dick?
I can hear you, but it seems a little delayed.
There you go. There you go.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. We appreciate you being here this morning. Dick, why the delay in this decision to postpone the Olympic Games?
Well, it was a tough call. It's very hard to move something as big and universal as the Olympics. There were some hopes that countries would react faster than they have to the virus, and that perhaps it could be brought under early control. That unfortunately has not happened, and I think it made it inevitable for the IOC and Tokyo to say, look, we can't risk everybody's health at this time by having the games, so let's rejig it for a year from now and hope the virus is under control by then.
Sir, thank you for being on the show, but forgive me for asking this question. When you talk about, it was a tough call, some people would sit up there and think about the fact that, the federal government, state and local officials have been preaching for over a week now about the importance of social distancing. When you listen to some of these Olympic athletes, they talked about working out with one another. They talked about the fact that they would be exposed to one another because obviously they still had to train because they were anticipating that the games would still go on. So in light of that reality, I mean, how are you guys feeling right now about the fact that it took you this long to make a decision? Because that's a week, more than a week that's gone by, and potential exposure may have actually taken place because the games had not been postponed or suspended.
Yeah, I think some of those measures by governments have actually predated some of these things, so that the restrictions were already in place, and athletes who are conscious of the risk of the virus were keeping that social distance. It might affect the particular training activities they could do, but our responsibility to everybody was to wait and make sure that there was no likelihood that the games could proceed in July of this year, and then take the decision in cooperation with the Japanese authorities that, the public health issues override even something as important as the Olympics. Let's redo it. We'll come back in a year, hope that the virus is under better control, and we can have the Olympics as an affirmation of the idea that it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down. What's really important is how many times you get up and carry on. So that's what we're hoping to do, and I think that will be a good message if we can put it together.
And that this would not affect the date of any Olympics going forward, correct? In other words, if it's in 2021, then the following Olympics will be in the years that they have normally been. Yes.
That's right. Yes. You just sort of jig the time forward by a year, but the 2002 games in the Winter Games in China will go ahead in 2002, and then Paris in 2024, and we should be back on schedule.
Sir, Lolo Jones was on Get Up, the show Get Up on ESPN earlier this morning that precedes us, and she talked about how drug testing had stopped for Olympians. Is that true? And if indeed that is true, how come, again, we talk about the delay in the decision. What was that about? Why was there no drug testing that was taking place? I think the answer is obvious, but I'm still asking anyway, why no drug testing was taking place, and how did you all anticipate that would affect the Olympics in the event that the games were going to take place?
Well, there are two things. One is that the testing was reduced as a result of the restrictions caused by the virus. The second is that sort of on-the-spot drug testing doesn't catch as many people as investigations, as whistleblowers, and as the athlete biological passport can do it. So there are lots of ways that doping can be detected without catching somebody on the spot providing a urine sample. So I think it's important to have that in place, but frankly, far more doping violations result from non-analytical positive tests.
The explanation, just getting back to the kind of delay of the postponement of the games, the explanation sounds credible to me, hoping that governments would respond better than they did. The pandemic could be contained, and then it could go on, in due course. But given the response of Trump, especially early on, who was disconnected from the reality, we have 5 cases, we're going to go to no cases, we have it under control. We have it. As the cases kept rising and rising, it became pretty obvious, as Stephen A. said at least a week ago, that this was out of control, that this was not being contained at the highest level, at least of this government, and that it was a worldwide pandemic. I guess my question is, are you saying that there was a lag time for the committee between how they hoped governments would respond and the way they actually responded, or that it's such an unwieldy kind of huge, thing that you can't be as nimble making decisions as maybe other organizations?
Well, governments are certainly bigger and often more cumbersome than other organizations. On the other hand, they have the power to impose restrictions, and it clearly has taken some governments longer than others to become alert to the mathematics of a pandemic. And you've seen in Spain and in Italy and France that are all locked down these days. And I think the United States was slow to get off the mark on this, and there's a lot more travel involving U.S. Citizens and residents because they're in business and they have international connections. So they're going to have been exposed to the virus more than perhaps a more sedentary or more rural population. But now I think no matter where you are on the political spectrum, this is a real problem. And if you look at the number of cases coming up every day, it's pretty clear that it would have been reckless to persist with trying to hold the games in July of this year. And that's the decision that we made as the IOC in conjunction with the Japanese authorities, who recognize the same sort of issues.
Absolutely. Dick, I realize this is a very busy time for you. Thank you so much for taking some time out to answer our questions this morning here on First Take.
Pleasure. Nice to be with you.
Yeah. All the best to you and your family. When we come back here on First Take, back to the NFL. Houston traded Deshaun Watson's top target. Wait till you hear what he had to say and what it really means for his future with the Texans. Marcus